Hello everyone, good to see you. Paul Trani here. Welcome to Photoshop Masterclass. Good to have you here. Tracy, David, Carol, everyone, Tim, of course. Gonna dive into this, all about effects and filters and stuff. So super fun. I'm actually in the studio in San Francisco. Did some glass blowing yesterday. See what I made? Just kidding. All right, everyone. So this is gonna be really fun. I have a lot of just like fun images on my screen just to kind of represent the number of things you could do with effects. But I would actually put it into two different categories. It's all about distorting elements for compositing to make it look like it's part of another scene. And then there's just abstract filters, if you will. So this is an example of something that's just like abstract. That's like super easy to make, and it's really fun when you start combining these effects. So I think it should be a good time. Good to have you here. Yes, and a big thank you to Kathleen. She's fantastic. It was so nice seeing her this morning. A lot of times we're like pretty remote, so we don't get to see each other that much. But let's kind of dive into just kind of taking a look at some of these, just so you know, just to get you inspired. Super easy to make. We can kind of go through a number of these, right? Fun things that we can do, and we can start to combine these, some of these effects together, which again, I think is exciting about this piece. For instance, of course we have this one, which is like a small world, really easy to make. I could probably do this in like, it probably takes two moves to make this, like just two things you need to know. And then I wanna really pick apart all the different effects that you can dive into. This obviously, we have a color halftone, different effects around this as well. I kind of click through all of this stuff. And again, I think it's all about more restraint when it comes to effects anyways. So let's kind of, just reading chat right now. Hello everyone, feel free to, oh, face with letters. Thank you so much for pointing that out as well. Here's a face with letters. This is a really like older picture of me, which, who's this young guy, right? But how can you do this? How can you take text and wrap it around a face? It's an effect. We could do this really easily, okay? It's just knowing how it goes. Here's again, getting into, again, another effect, making a kind of like a small world. This is just tilt shift is what it's known as, but super easy to work with. So hopefully you're fun, or hopefully you find these fun to look at and, you're into it. Okay, so this is good. This is good feedback, by the way. So David likes the face with the letters, text on the face. You guys are appreciating this one. Maybe I'll actually start with this one. Super easy to work with once you know the moves. So yeah, I'm here for you. Since you guys are responding the most to this one, let's kind of start with this one. Okay, and welcome. It's good to have you here. Got my Phil's coffee. Ah, it's fantastic, man. All right, thank you. Rasim knows exactly what I'm talking about, because as we take a look at the filters, and mainly I'm gonna be playing in this area, okay? And we can go through all of these, right? But I'm glad we're starting with this first one. It's all about like kind of distorting elements, right? So we'll get into distortion of photos and text, and then we'll dive into abstract, stylizing, crazy stuff. So fantastic. The face is cool. Okay, so let's do this. Distort, that's what we want to do. We can't just jump into it. We need to find our photo first. I could grab one of me. I can go into maybe grab another one too. It's kind of a number of things we can actually do. Let's actually take, if you don't mind, I think this is really important, is just kind of determine the type of photo to use, okay? I'm gonna take this one. The reason this is nice, you can take one of you, whatever you want, is that there's nice sort of like depth. We go from lights to darks. So this is gonna work out really well, okay? For this thing, this image, what I first wanna do is, I'm just going to, I can do a couple things. I'm gonna grab some text. So give me 1 second. Boom, boom. We're gonna grab our text layer. Here it is. Bam. Maybe we'll shrink this down. Wait for it. Adjusting the image size because it's absolutely huge. And I don't want you to have to wait for all that processing time. That's more along the lines of what we want. Let's take this text like so, kind of covering her up, okay? And all I did is I think I took, actually I don't even know what type of text I grabbed. A lot of times I'll do quotes or something that represents me if you're gonna do a portrait, right? So I did a lot of quotes in my other one. But typically I'll drop in a lot of text like so. Text tool, done, boom, boom. All right. The grid layout to see all my files, by the way, is a shortcut. So typically it's window, arrange, and it's tile is what I'm doing. So I set up a shortcut to tile everything and then also to consolidate all to tabs. Okay, so I actually use that like all the time. Okay. Let's do this. Let's take this image. We're gonna save this first image out, right? This, first off, we need to make a black and white version. I kind of want to do it initially, kind of how you would normally do it, and kind of show you the issues that you might run into. But we need two images. We need this one right here, which I'm gonna save to my desktop. Boom, boom. We'll call this, we're just calling her Curly, why not? Here's my original file. I'm gonna save out another one as a curly bump, PSD. So I need two files. I need my original and then I need my bump map. It's typically going to be gray that I am gonna pull from. Okay, so this layer's done, filter, distort. We're gonna go into displace, okay? Because we wanna displace this text. So with that layer selected, when I go to filter, distort, displace, and this time I have a text layer selected, it's gonna say, hey, you need to convert it to a smart object, which is exactly what I wanna do. And right here, how much you wanna distort it. This depends on the resolution of your file. Honestly, you're just gonna have to play with it, okay? I'm gonna do 10 and 10, and I'm gonna just stretch it to fit. It doesn't really matter because my bump map, the other one that I saved out, is the same size, so it works out great. Repeat edge pixels hardly matters. I just make sure everything's at that original size. So there's no distortion ultimately. But we'll do 10 and 10. We'll click OK, boom. Locate our file to be our bump map right there. There's Curly, there she is. Same exact image, right? Click open and it does its magic. We can see it starts to distort around that face, right? This is what's interesting about this. As we take a look, it does a good job of wrapping, right? It will wrap around the cheek and it looks really good, but this is what you get, is you get a lot of this pixelation, right? So how do we fix this? You probably know already how to do this. Since this is a smart object, we can say, hey, you know what? Get rid of this displacement map. Let's try this again. Let's throw this away. And hold on one second. Curly bump. There we are. Wait for it. There we are. Okay, so here are my two files, and this might be even better to put these together. Bam, bam. I take this bump map right here that has all this detail. I'll typically like convert it to a smart object. I will sometimes make it gray, right? Because that's just gonna help me understand it and just kind of see it a little bit better. I will go into filter. If your face has a lot of texture to it, I'll go into camera raw filter and I'll take down any texture that you might have in the skin. So when you do this and your skin's like looking a little rough, take down the texture, right? It smooths out all of her skin. So she already looks fantastic, right? We can also adjust a little bit of the clarity if we want to, making that nice and smooth, right? And I'm curious about this hair, right? What I can do for this hair is I can jump in there with a brush, set to black, and I could start to paint over the top of it, right? We're just gonna make it darker is what we can do there. And that's gonna push it back ultimately, right? Just like that, you get the idea. Boom, boom, boom. I'm gonna go a little bit faster. This is a masterclass. You should understand how most of this works. We'll come in here, we'll blur this out. We'll do a Gaussian blur, which happens to be an effect. Blurring her out like so. Like that, boom. I'm gonna make this nice. For this one on the top, it's gonna have layer mask. Bring in some of her face, right? Or maybe I want some more of that sort of depth with the face. I'm just gonna bring in like maybe a little bit more detail like so. There we go, cool. This is just a nice bump map. This is exactly what I want, right? Cool, cool, done. This is Curly Bump, saving the file. Having a drink of my coffee, because it's Friday, folks. It's Friday, and I hope you're living your best life, as they say. All right, there's my bump map. I'll keep that up. I'll make sure it's saved. Going here to my text layer, distort, displace, which happens to be the top one. And then we'll use those same numbers. By the way, you'll notice it's only set to 10. If I do it at 100, it's gonna be like super jagged. I keep it from 5 to 20 max, just so you know. But again, it just depends on your resolution. Selecting this curly bump with gray, boom, boom. And there we go. Oh, so much better, right? I wish I would have kept the other one, but notice how it's not distorting that text so much because I want to be able to read it. You ready to take it into the next level? Boom, duplicate it. Command J. It's distorting it. I'm gonna put this image on top and we're gonna change this to, we're gonna change the blend mode. Here we go. We'll change it to multiply, for instance, right? And this is more along the lines of what I want, right? Look at that. This text fades out. It has that nice bending, and that's how you get these text style portraits. Thanks, Rasim. Since her face is tilted, actually what I would do is I'd spend more time on this and I would make the text tilted with the face, because the goal is to make it look like it's actually on her face, right? Super easy to work with. You could play with some of these different blend modes, kind of depending on what you're going for. Sometimes if you get an overlay, that might actually work. Looks like hard light actually makes it stand out even more, okay? But there's a number of things that you could do in here, and I can talk all day long about it. Even pin light looks pretty good. It's a little bit more pronounced at this point. Oh, Jan Eric, puns for days. So glad to have you here, man. We got jokes. Read it like an open book. Fantastic. Right. Yeah, I can go on and on. Honestly, I could do a combination of this. You want to get really advanced? This is a masterclass. Absolutely love this. Command J, boom. Clipping mask, boom, like that. This top layer, shoop. Check this out. You ready for this? Let's make this black. Let's do this. You ready? We're gonna change this to normal. This is gonna be my clipping mask. I'm gonna put black behind her, right? So we're getting rid of her face entirely. We have black, and we're just revealing the photo where we have that text with the displacement map. And now we have this fun look, okay? Would it be cool if you use a script font? No, to be honest with you, I would not, because it'd be harder to read. Honestly, like the more condensed, clean text is gonna look better because you want it to be legible and you want the distortion not to come from the type, but to come from the effect, okay? Or we could do, we could do an inverted bump map. An inverted bump map is gonna invert it. You get the idea. What I do like, by the way, is, I misspell things all the time, but now I can come in here, double click on this, right in here, and zoom in. What do we want? I would say Rasim is the best. There we go. Sneak a little subliminal magic in there. Rasim is the best. Not only that, I'm gonna try this. I actually don't know if this is gonna work 100%, so let's just tilt this text. I'm gonna rotate it the angle of her face. Okay, like so, saving it, closing it, and it's still wrapping. Fantastic. There we go. So I would actually play with this a lot and get this the way I look, the way I want it to look. Michael Shays does not want me to use Lobster, but that's funny. I don't know. I think for a while there, Lobster was like the new Comic Sans, but I personally like Lobster. It just gets overused. Okay, so let's move on to some other distortion effects, okay? Good to have you here, Anel. Saving Curly. Curly did a great job. Thank you so much, Curly. I'm gonna go ahead and close that file. And again, you can see how this one was done. Same idea. If we go into this text, it's done the exact same way, right? That's just done with my face from a photo that's 8 years old or something. Clay, so we could get rid of that. Let's dive into distortion effects. We'll do the small world. Yes, so by the way, Nancy, to answer your question, can you make her eyes and lips show without the text? Yeah, love that idea. You could play with this all day long based on what you know. I talked about selections and masks last week, and you're totally on the right track, right? So we have this other layer that we can add a layer mask to. We can invert that. We can come in here and just paint with white to reveal. And by the way, this is just has a layer blend mode, but I want to just add a little more splash of color just right here. And I think that's a great idea. Make her eyes pop a little bit more as we kind of paint that in. And that might be more along the lines of what you might want. I don't know, just have some fun with it. I can paint in a little bit more of this detail, have as much fun with it as I want because I understand how layers and blend modes work. Cool. Yes, Rasim, yeah, I honestly think the small world has been around for freaking decade, forever, okay? Because that effect has been in Photoshop for a decade, okay? But I think it's actually really good to resurface some of these for a new generation, shall we? You can see how old this is because look at this old picture of me. That's not even my body. I just cut my head off and put it on something else. But let's do this because first thing we need to do, we're just going to do the small world part. So we're going to just scratch all the people, right? There's Terry White in the background. We want to do something like this image here. Okay, I don't have that exact same one, but we'll do something like it, okay? There it is. Let's turn that off. Typically, you're going to start with just a blank image. We could even do it with this image. I actually haven't even done it with this image, and I think it's exciting for me to just try a new image. Typically, you'll take a landscape. You want a nice horizontal line. You can have some ground. You can have some sky. It works best if the sky fades up to just like one singular color. Okay, it's hugely helpful. Okay, so that's what I might do. In fact, I'll move this up. Let's get to work, folks. Let's do some work, shall we? Boom, boom. Gradient. Make that one nice color, because that's going to be my background color right there. Go in here. Command J. Select all. Fill. Boom, boom. What else do we need to do? We need to take this. I said we could do this in 2 moves. This is one move, is you do need to flip the image, right? Because it's actually going to do the polar coordinates from this top center edge right here, okay? All right, Anel, good having you here. By the way, I have like a ton of horrible fonts on my machine and some awesome fonts. And I call it balance. That's what's known as balance. If you don't have some horrible fonts, how are you gonna appreciate the good fonts? Okay, so this is our main sort of starting point. I actually don't need to, I don't know if this needs to be merged or not, but I typically do. Copy merged, paste. So here's my layer. This is my, actually let's go in here. This is my landscape. Let's convert it to a smart object. It's our get out of jail free card, just in case we screw it up. We'll go into Distort, and we'll go to polar coordinates, right? Everybody's feeling a little dizzy. It's upside down. Polar coordinates, that's what we do. We can shrink it down. We can see what it looks like so. Oh, here's another thing I need to do. So I faded out the top, but I want to make sure the left edge and the right edge match up. So I can already see right there, it's not exactly what I want. Hit cancel, jump in here, take that layer, duplicate it, Command T, flip horizontal, boom. Make it a good day with a little Photoshop magic like we're doing now. There we go. Flipped. Smart object. Polar coordinates. Now that they're matched up, not only the sky, but both sides, polar coordinates. It's easy from here. Rectangular, like so. Click OK. And there, it does exactly what I want it to do. It looks a little funky now. I get it. We're going to do more. You ready for this, Jan Eric? It's good to have everybody here. Hopefully everybody's doing well. I'm all hyped up on coffee. It's a good day. It's a good day to be alive. So I did that with just a basic, obviously just a basic landscape. I think it works really well if you're doing a cityscape and you just have, like, maybe it's not particularly tall, but you only take the top quarter of your canvas, like so. Right, so that's what I'm doing here. We'll convert it to a smart object. We'll go filter, distort, polar coordinates with a cityscape, and this is more along the lines of what is super cool, right? Oh yeah, by the way, guess what, Jan Eric? I didn't match up the two edges, because with these buildings, you can't tell. It's like totally fine, right? What this does need is this needs to be much larger resolution. So typically that's what it would be, make it larger, and then do the polar coordinates, because it's taking all those pixels and multiplying it, well, 180 degrees, like all the way around. So the higher res, the better off you are. But for the sake of time, I think this is looking good. We can take this, we have this one, we have this city. We'll change the blend mode to something else. Yeah, why not? Scale it up. You get the idea. Cool. You paint in there. That's the start to something cool, right? So Eve, Loria, hopefully you appreciate this. Super easy to work with. Your two moves is to flip it so it's pointing downward, and then you go ahead and do your polar coordinates. Now, what if we wanted to undo this? You can actually undo these moves, because check this out. This has polar coordinates. I'll go back into this effect. You can take something that has polar coordinates and make it straight again by using polar to rectangular. It's not always going to be perfect, but that's what you're going to get. As I take a look, zoom out, it will try to like unravel it. So there. Oh, I see what's happening. So anyways, polar to rectangular. Hold on, give me 1 second. Boom, duplicate it. Say, let's rasterize this. You know, there we go. Okay, so this is it. I've already applied that polar coordinates. Now if I go into filter, distort, polar coordinates. Boom. Polar to rectangular. There we go. Now it's back to the way it was roughly. Cool. Click OK. There we go. Back to normal. Yeah, polar opposites, polar coordinates. Yeah, you get the idea. So cool. Now it's unraveled. We go from this to this. But again, hopefully you see how you can actually quickly come up with something like this using pictures of yourself from 10 years ago, right? Look at that, young, full of life. Got a spring in my step. No, here we go. Rufus. I forgot her name, and Sophia. Sophia. She's an illustrator. Terry White, and I think Jason was in here at some point. You get the idea. Cool. Let's move on to something else, right? We're having fun with the distortion effects, okay? If we go into filter, by the way, there's more we can do, obviously. We can get into tilt shift. Super easy to work with. But again, I'm making you aware of all these various effects, right? Taking something like this image, right? Filter, blur gallery. We have a number of blurs that we can do. And again, we're kind of going through some of these. Let's get into tilt shift. Super easy to do. It's like no hands mode. This is my default. Why does this work well? Because like the photo is like perfect. Yes, Marianne, to bring up, good point. If you wanted to bring it back to normal, you just turn off the smart filter. You're exactly right. But I think it's fascinating that you could actually take somebody's small world and unravel it. So even when it's applied, you can do the reverse of that effect to undo it, right? Yeah, Vitor, this is for you. This is actually, even though it's called Masterclass, we want everybody to be a master in their own way. Notice this tilt shift replicates sort of a shallow depth of field, obviously, like 2.8 lens. I don't know what it would be. I don't even know how you can, this is not even possible in the real world, but you can take a real world photo and right over here, adjust the blur, distortion. You could use this panel off to the side, or you could just jump in here and say, hey, you know what? Let's give it more blur by adjusting the blurriness actually in the document, on the photo, right? I usually crank up the blur a little bit more, and then I stretch this out. I make sure this fall off is a little bit more drastic, right? So bring this in. This is 0% blurriness, and then the ends, which is 17, this is the 17% blurriness, right? So I'll usually just stretch that out, and so you have a longer transition of blurs. I'll tell you the mistake that people make, by the way. Is this, like, and this is, this is a pretty good example. Clicking OK. This looks pretty good. Technically, like these buildings, it's like this building, I don't, since it's taller, it shouldn't be, it's not farther away. This building right here shouldn't be that blurry. Well, just like anything else, we can go into this smart filter, selecting that layer mask, hitting B for brush, kind of actually zooming in, zoop, and then we can kind of paint that away a little bit, right? Let's actually take this down even more, this flow, and we can just kind of get rid of that a little bit. And I think sometimes that makes it look a little bit more realistic, because it doesn't treat it right now. It's actually treating this image, it's just as a flat image, and it doesn't understand that this is a building, that maybe this should be a little bit more clear, and then behind it should be a little bit more blurry. Cool, like so. So I would go in and add a little of those details, and it's gonna make it look much better, right? Not that it doesn't look fantastic at the get-go. Are you into it? Jason Rose likes when they say their name. You know why I like saying Jason Rose's name? Is because I can pronounce it. If I can pronounce your name, it's much more likely to be said. But I will give everybody's a shot, like Cecilia Champagne's. So, again, hopefully that makes sense. I can always go back into this blur gallery and adjust these settings more or less. Oops. I can obviously also change the angle, as you saw as well. So cool, super fun. I can talk about the blurriness all day long. Maybe that literally deserves its own hour, because if we go in here and we take a look at the entire blur gallery, by the way, we have field blur, we have iris blur, we have path blur, so you could draw a path. So if you did want somebody jumping and you wanted more motion. Ready for this? Let's do this really fast. I wanted to add motion to her arm. Taking that layer, making it a smart object, filter, blur gallery, path blur. Right in here, you could see this path already set up, but guess what? I can make it go down that direction, and I can give it a curve like so, right? Another thing I could do is I could actually put a line right here, and I could actually set this line to, see, notice how it's actually moving that direction, it's blurring it that direction, but I could also take that and take the speed down to, hold on one sec. Wait for it to, it's updating. There we go, selecting it, end point speed, taking that down. Sorry, I'm waiting for it to update, but you can actually control the blurriness. You could take that down to 0 for parts that you want it to be clear. There we go, you can see that endpoint speed. You get the idea, right? So as I draw, you can see these lines that we can obviously bend and make it look like she's running really fast, even though we know she isn't, not in those heels. All right, you get the idea. Done, done, click OK, let's move on. Yes, exactly. Vivi, I would actually use a mask if I wanted to. I just realized you actually, if you set it to 0, it changes everything to 0, which is smart on its part, but I would use a mask for the parts that we want clear. Right? So you're exact, Vivi, great call, by the way. And again, we can jump in here, go to that smart filter, hit B for brush. We wanted the face to be a little clear, like that. There we go. Just kind of paint in a little bit of that, and you can see that motion. Cool. Fantastic. Great questions. Thank you so much for getting involved. I really appreciate you. I'm going to get into just like actually a lot of effects. So we kind of have it down to a couple different files. So we get into going beyond something that's like a sense of realism that we're going for, or distorted realism, to something that's purely abstract. Right? By the way, Marianne, like this whole path blur, there's spin blur. I have another example where like I'll make a car that's just sitting still look like it's in motion. You use spin blur for the wheels, so they spin. You use path blur for the body, or the background to make sure it looks like it's whipping around the corner, right? So you can use a combination of these together. Oh, I like Jan Eric. I like you, buddy. You're a good man. Good to have you here. All right. This is what I encourage you to do, by the way, is jump in and take a file and try some of these effects, right? I'm actually going to obviously start with just a file with no effect on it, okay? And by the way, it's actually this image of this lady. I actually want to kind of swap it out for something else. Let's go with her. Perfect. She'll be our new subject as we bring this into place, like so. Right? Since that's a smart object, and I'm going to change the resolution because it's super high, and I apologize. All right. Yeah, the car motion is super fun. By the way, like professionally, it's a separate tool that people would use, and we baked that technology directly in Photoshop. Ones that people who create like car advertisements can actually just use Photoshop alone because it used to be a separate tool before. Okay, so that's done. Let's close this. Different image. Probably just keep it interesting for me, maybe. All right. Wait for it. Wait for it. Okay, cool. Just making sure everything's a little smaller so these effects move a little faster. Cool. Yeah, faux light leaks are cool as well. By the way, I'm glad I actually dealt with the resolution because it's going to change and be different. The effects will be different depending on the resolution. So this is a little smaller now. We're gonna take this image of her, this lovely lady, right? We wanna create the color halftone effect, right? For this image, it's a smart object filter. See right down here, we can go into pixelate right in here and color halftone, right? I posted this on Instagram like 2 days ago and people were like, oh, this is really cool. I'm kind of aware of the resolution, right? We can see the max radius in pixels is 20. And then all these channels are offset, okay? These are the different angles. So it's gonna be CMYK. Clicking OK, we could see it right here. We could see cyan, magenta, yellow, and then we have black as they overlap. So we have green, I'm sorry, we have green in there as well. But those are all the different colors. They become more spaced out. Excuse me, they become larger or smaller depending on where the detail is, okay? Yeah, we can take a look, Jan Eric, by the way. I can always jump in. I usually apply this effect, and then I'll go back into color halftone, and I'll take this down to like 10. You can see all the radius, the dots are gonna be smaller, she's gonna be more clear, okay? If I go in here to the color halftone, I'll take this maybe back up to 20 so we can see it a little bit better, and I'll change all these, I can change all these channels, by the way, and I think I'll just duplicate this just to be on the safe side. Take all these channels, and if I make them the same thing, so if I make them 0, 0, 0, 0, clicking OK, it's actually gonna put them all on top of one another, and that's when we got like more of a true like dot matrix effect. I actually don't remember the exact style this is called, but this is if we don't want those colors, we have this sense of detail now. And another thing you can do is duplicate that layer. You can have a separate layer on top. We'll take this down to 10 pixels, clicking OK. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a layer mask. We talked all about layer masks and all that fun stuff. Painting with white, with this layer that's on top that has more detail, by the way. And we can kind of give her more detail, maybe in certain parts of the eyes or the face, like so, right? So I can start to play with this depth all I want, okay? Another thing I could actually do, let's actually disable that layer mask. And I'm gonna play with these blend modes because I have a sneaking suspicion as we start to kind of have a little bit more fun with this. If I add layer blend modes, I start to get even different effects, like one on top of the next. So it doesn't look like it's a filter straight out of the box, right? Cool. We call it measles blur. Steve, what's up, buddy? Good to have you, Steve. Kasaboom, how you doing? So some people like the smaller dots. I would say when it comes to the dots, it depends on your output. Where is this gonna be displayed? Because I really liked the smaller dots initially, by the way. And, but then I realized when I posted it to Instagram, it looked better when I had those larger dots because it was a little bit more abstract, right? But feel free to have fun with this. I actually love color halftone. Set those to 0. Max radius can be any size that you want. By the way, you're getting like 2 for 1 today because that same effect is actually in Illustrator as well. So you do the same thing in Illustrator. Cool. That's looking pretty good. We go from this one to this one to this one. Cool. All right, let's kind of dive into some more of these. I'm going to click through some of these. I think some of these aren't as cool as I'd like them to be, but I'm going to just make you aware of them. As we go into filter, we can get into, again, pixelate. It's all of these effects. They might be hopefully pretty straightforward. Some are better than others. I guess it's all personal opinion. Because you can see this is crystallized now. What does crystallize look like? Looks like this. Crystals. We get the idea, right? Controlling the cell size, as you can see right here, clicking OK, obviously more blurry. We can take that same technique by having a crystallize with more detail on top of one that has less detail, and have some fun with the detail in the eyes and the lips, right? Like that, right? So it's going to take a combination of things. Thank you, Jan Eric. You're exactly right. Jan Eric said it, so I don't have to, by the way, because I think don't use effects for effects' sake. Like, what's your goal here, right? That's what you want to kind of realize at the end of the day. What's your goal? Crystallize, facet. Here's a fragment, by the way, which you only have one setting for fragment. Mezzotint, same idea. Jan Eric, you probably on the same page. I think this is a dated look. Like clearly you took a photo and made it look like some pointillized sort of feature, right? And it just, this personally doesn't like do anything for me. You can combine them with other things and make it more interesting, but that's just mezzotint, right? Mosaic, same thing. We're obviously trying to protect her identity, right? We want to protect her identity some more. Let's do this. Boom. We'll just take these bars. Shoop. Like so, like so. Wait for it. There we go. Now we're protecting her identity. Oops, cancel. Boop. Oh, it's me. It's me, guys. Right. The Witness Protection Program filter. It's exactly right. Hi, guys. It's really me. Oh, wait. Well, oh, we're not tracking her. Oh, her identity is getting out there. Help us all. I'm going to get into Stylize because I think Stylize actually adds even more depth. And when I say Stylize, I mean the Stylize filter set. So let's jump in here. You ready for this? Are you ready? Let's dive into this. For her, first off, she looks fantastic, right? There's little we need to do. But let's say, for instance, we want to smooth out her skin, right? And I'm going to talk about this next week because I have a daily creative challenge. If you want to smooth out skin, I can go in here and I can go to filter. This is what I typically tell people to do, camera raw filter. I did it earlier, but we have texture off to the side. Taking that texture down is going to smooth out her skin. So again, more detailed, smoothing out that texture, but keeping the detail in her eyes. Okay, so this is a filter, the camera raw filter, fantastic. Here's another way to do that as well, is you can actually use, let's just call her woman, jumping that layer, we can go into filter, stylize, and try something like emboss. You ready for this? Emboss. Super ugly and dated, right? Jan Eric would agree. We have this dated look. But what emboss can do is it takes that layer, makes it gray, and adds an emboss, or like almost like a bump map, to that particular image. So this will allow me to add a level of detail that might work out okay for me, right? So if I do this softly, there we go. Like this sort of level of emboss, click OK. Taking this to something like soft light or overlay, you could see how you're able to enhance details with emboss, okay? Let me actually mask out this spot right here just so you can see the difference, right? So right in here, I'll move this, oops, unlock this. Moving this clarity around, this is like a clarity box that I'm moving around. This is emboss that's being used to bring out the detail in her eyes. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Jan Eric. Like frequency separation, I don't know if I've done that in the past. Could have done something like it. I just think people do like so many multiple steps to get a look like this, or to sharpen the details, when you could just use emboss. And the great thing is we could always jump in, since this is a smart object, and adjust it some more. So we can have more detail. As you can see, I can crank that up, give her more detail in her eyes. She probably would not like it, or less, right? So you get the idea. Cool, emboss. Pro tip, Masterclass. Thanks for hanging out with me. I have about 9 minutes. Let's get into some of these others as well. Emboss we just went through. Again, find edges as well. It's not a particularly great effect when used alone, but you can always use it in combination with something else. And let me just adjust this canvas size because it's annoying me. 950, height. There we go, much better. There you go, right? So now you kind of have sort of partial sketch look combined with the original photo. You can see what you obviously can get. And all we're using is something called find edges, right? Before, after, and then after a little bit more work. All right. Again, oil paint. You want to make something look a little bit dated, you can use this oil paint. What I was doing here is showing you an extreme example of it, right? If I go into oil paint, I can see I've actually added a lot of stylization and a lot of cleanliness. If I take this down, obviously, you ready? It's gonna give me these shorter strokes. And if I take down the cleanliness, it starts to look a little more chunky. So you have different options there. All right, cool. The thing is if you do this to a photo, it's called oil paint. Nobody's gonna think that you painted it. Like nobody is, right? Because it looks like you've just applied a filter to it. Because guess what? That's exactly what you did. Let's move on from there. Solarize, tiles, trace contour, wind as well. Kind of ran through a lot of these. I want to get to one that I actually have been playing with the most, and it's Extrude, right? I think Extrude shows a lot of potential, right? And I have a couple of different examples in here. Starting with this background, let's convert it to a smart object. Notice how, actually let's just take this photo. This is all we're gonna do. Stylize, and we'll go down to Extrude, okay? Extrude is gonna add a 3D effect, 3D blocks that are gonna be 30 pixels in size, and the depth is also gonna be 30, just for a start. So it's like 30 deep, 30 wide. It's more like a cube at this point, okay? I can go with solid front faces. I'm gonna keep everything else. It's gonna do random, clicking OK. This is really interesting as you get into more of these details. All right. There we go. That's what I'm talking about when I mention extrude. You could see they all look like squares at different depths based on, see right over here, based on the center point. So I'm actually gonna do something here. If I go into the smart object, I take this image, I move her over, save, close. Updating that smart object. Yeah, exactly. A subraceme, yeah. Oil paint can be good for landscape pics, right? Anyways, I moved her over in the smart object because I want her eyeball to be the center point, right? It's Minecraft face. Yep. You got it. All right. How we doing? How we doing, Jim?
Doing good.
All right, Jim's doing great. He's running the tech here. Very shallow depth. I'm gonna go ahead and dive into this. Extrude. We're gonna make this more extreme. We're gonna make this 90, so it's gonna be 3 times the size, right? Clicking OK. We're gonna really see this jump out. If I did this with an image that was on white, I'll give it even more interesting effects, and that's kind of what I want to do next. It's too bad this is such a large image. I don't know why I do it. But let me know how you're doing. I'm broadcasting from beautiful San Francisco, where, I don't know, it was like super rainy yesterday, but today it seems pretty nice. And that's all I got. Typical San Francisco, according to Jim, who's, maybe, are you a native to California?
No, but lived here more than 2 decades.
He's been here 2 decades, get it. So you're native, I get it. But so you know how the winters are. The winter's actually pretty nice, I feel.
Yeah.
Right? So there we go. We obviously get to get something more drastic. I'm gonna play with this a little bit more like I was with this image. Let's take a look at this one. Let's go in here, make it a smart object. It is should be a smaller image altogether. 900, let's do it, click OK. There we have it, right? We're gonna have this center point is where that burst is gonna come from. Actually, wait for it. Stylize, extrude. Click OK. You can see it's kind of based on the resolution, it's gonna act a little bit different. So let's go back in here some more. Actually, you know what? Why did I even do that? Filter, extrude, boom. 10, depth of 90, clicking OK. There we have something a little bit more drastic. Wait for it. Wait for it. When I'm applying effects, by the way, do you see what I did there? You can take an effect, you have a different layer. If you hold down the Option key, just like you can with layer styles, I can grab that. Holding down the Option key, I can apply it to this layer above. So that's what I did just for this bottom layer because I wanted to grab more of the background, right? Now we can see that burst being much more dramatic, and I can modify that. Ooh, shoot, we're getting down to time. Modify that some more. Command J to jump it. Layer mask, B for brush. Jason Levine's up next, by the way, with his brand new masterclass dealing with video and audio. I'm not sure what he's covering today specifically. All I know is it's probably going to be amazing because it is Jason Levin after all. Otherwise known as Jason Levine. All right, hitting X. Bringing in, by the way, parts of this image that I want to bring in, like her face or whatever the case may be, and having other parts burst out. I'm going to spend more time on this and post it to Instagram, so check that out, PTRANI. And thanks so much for watching. Throw it over to Jason now. Appreciate you, Jason. It's going to be awesome. Stick around for him. Thanks so much, everybody.
Jasper.